Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking about you and your business. Lee Kaplan is a phenomenal attorney, good friend of this show, with the firm Smyser, Kaplan, and Verselka, and involved in all areas of business litigation. Have been doing it for probably longer than he wishes to admit, but because of that huge amount of work, you bring so much experience and knowledge every time you come on our program, and I always enjoy having you. Good to see you.
Great to be here.
Love your insight. Tell us a little bit about the firm, and then let's talk about some of the hot topics that I think pertain to business and the law today.
Well, we're what is called a boutique litigation firm, which means that we do almost exclusively lawsuits and arbitrations, both trials and appeals, and we have 13 lawyers, most of whom grew up somewhere in the Texas area, most of whom clerked for federal judges, and basically we look to try lawsuits. Sometimes they settle. In fact, frequently they settle, but what we're about is getting ready for trial and going to trial. Yep.
See, when you said boutique, I kind of thought you might sell handbags and stuff like that as well. But no, it means that you really are specialists in a certain area, and that's a pretty substantial firm to specialize in that area.
Well, this is an expression that grew up in the 80s. Houston had very little of this except for personal injury plaintiffs' firms. But now, great amounts of litigation in Houston are done by firms that specialize in litigation, because the larger firms are more often having conflicts from their other work, corporate work, real estate work, doing wills, trusts, and estates work. So much more litigation than previously flows to small litigation firms that just specialize in litigation.
You mentioned before we got started, I thought, some pretty interesting stories. Let's start with the one that we didn't talk about much, which was the fact that the election turnout was pathetic. 100,000 people voted on Election Day. That was for both Republicans and Democrats. What did you think about that?
Well, it's pretty disappointing because we are seeing some major developments in the state and in the city, and people have got to vote. You know, we're always complaining about our legislators. We're complaining about the people who govern us. And the answer for that is not to not vote. The answer is to get involved and to vote. You don't have to have placards and go demonstrate, but you really ought to vote. And it's what it means is that because the vast majority of people, many of whom have, shall we say, moderate views, whether moderate conservative or moderate liberal, because they don't participate, it's only the most committed, the most emotionally involved, the zealots who take over. And that's part of the reason the two parties have diverged further, because we've let them by not participating. So the activists control both parties. That's a dangerous development. That's why we're becoming more polarized.
Yeah, that's interesting. In fact, that makes a lot of sense. You know, and my advice always is to vote early and often, very often in each campaign. But no, you can't do that. But no, seriously, you should be voting because otherwise you're deferring your future to other people. And that seems very myopic and says volumes. You know, I don't know if I'm sure you read, everyone has who's gone through college, Brave New World.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You know, I always worried we were going to become more of a 1984 dystopia, but I think we're becoming a Brave New World one where convenience and comfort prevail over everything else. And when government disimposes things on us, we just figure out how to work around it rather than thinking we can change it. I'm seeing that more and more our reality.
Well, soundbite living doesn't work. If people don't understand how difficult and messy it is to get things done, whether it's your personal life, your business life, or in government, and they don't get involved in it, they're defaulting to other people who are probably less connected to them, less able to really handle their matters for them, and more likely to do things that are just boneheaded, which we see all the time, and frankly, neither of the major parties has a monopoly on boneheadedness.
We're going to talk about one of those topics you brought up next time, but with a few minutes left, I do want to talk about the high-rise situation. Talk a little bit about that. The third topic we're going to get him back on is to talk about the potential consolidation of services between the county and the city, but that we could spend a whole segment just on that. Talk about this high-rise situation, which I think you pointed out very eloquently is telling about the future of Houston's development.
Well, as you know, there's the Ashby high-rise case that's still ongoing, although there was a verdict for multiple plaintiffs in that case. The court has yet to make a final decision on a final judgment. The court may well toss the entire case or enjoin the high-rise or not, or impose some or accept some of the damages awards that the jury made. We now have this River Oaks high-rise issue, which I think was encouraged by the fact that the Ashby high-rise case has lasted as long as it has. The most recent development is that District Judge Elaine Palmer has denied a request by some of the local residents to enter a temporary restraining order halting construction of that high-rise while the case goes on. I think that's wise myself, because when you talk about a construction effort that has apparently complied with all the ordinances, all the regulations, gotten all the permits, for a few people in the nearby area to say we don't like this kind of development, while I personally believe those are wrong-headed lawsuits and that's something to be handled by the city under its ordinances and regulations, you certainly shouldn't enjoin the construction in the meantime. This is a case that could have been filed a while ago. It's just now being filed, perhaps belatedly. We'll see how that plays out in the courts. But my personal belief is these cases are wrong-headed.
Yeah, and to me, they have a potential blow on rule of law in a local area. I mean, countries survive and economies survive based on rule of law. Our rule of law allows buildings like this to grow. If we don't like it, we need to change the rule of law, not arbitrarily change the law in the courtroom.
That's right, and these are policy decisions. After all, if you want to have mass transit, you need more density. If you want more density, you need more high-rises. And for certain neighborhoods that are well-heeled, to say we're extending beyond the actual restrictions in our own subdivision, but we're going to impose our likes and dislikes on the next property over, is a fairly extreme view of what you're allowed to do with private property rights.
Yeah,
I believe it's a mistake.
All right. He's attorney Lee Kaplan from skv.com is the website over there. Spicer, Kaplan, and Veselka. Regular contributor here on The Price of Business. Great article with his interview we did on the importance of jury duty over at usdailyreview.com. To me, it's a great civics lesson. And frankly, every time you come, it's a great civics lesson. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks. This is fun. I'll be back.
Well, I look forward to it. All right, so when I come back, we'll have much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here. It shows up over there at usdailyreview.com, including this great interview. Stay tuned for more right after this on The Price of Business.